Best game day bar.
Major Goolsby's in Milwaukee.
I knew it. I knew it.
Major Goolsby's in Milwaukee. You know, that fondness. So many of us have a fondness. The 1974 finals, where that was the social center of the whole finals. It was great. In fact, we got to the point where on the off-day press conferences, they figured everybody was hanging out at Goolsby's, so they had it there at a conference room. Yeah, you know, that'd be my all-time favorite NBA bar.
CLNS history is powered by FanDuel, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network.
Bob, are you ready for the Ryan 5?
Sure. Well, kind of. Maybe 4 out of 5. But nothing.
Okay. No, the first one is best quote. And what I mean by that is not the actual quote, but the player, when you would go into a locker room, you would go, that's my guy.
There's one guy that in my time, you know, from 69 until retirement, 2012, official retirement, that was, I call that there's only one guy I labeled as the conscience of the team at the particular point in time when he played for that team. And that was Paul Silas. He was a candor, just insight, fearlessness. Paul Silas would be. Now there are other fun. Kevin McHale was relentlessly quotable, and the thing I always thought was fun for us as writers about McHale is that he'd come up with these analogies and metaphors, and they always were right. They weren't stupid. Other people try and they failed. He didn't fail. He got it right. He got the metaphor right. He got the simile right. You know, it was he was amazing. He was fun. But Paul Silas would be my guy as the unfailing. Now, as John Havlicek, it's funny because as time went on, he got more and more. I don't know how to call it, mirthful. He loosened up more and more. He was a much more sort of uninhibited, fun-loving guy by the time he retired than he was when I first encountered him in 1969. But Silas was unquestionably the most forthright person that I dealt with.
Well, you know, 17 is my favorite number for a reason. I mean, John Havlicek it was the greatest thrill of my life. And after being in sports for a long time, you know, meeting athletes, that never was a big deal. I mean, I just like you meet guys and you're like, oh, you know, whatever. But Havlicek was always special to me. And the one thing, Tommy always told the story about how John was rolling so tight, he had to have like wooden hangers or something in his locker. And they had to be just so.
Well, my recollection is not the hanger, not the hangers so much, but in general terms, I wrote and said that his locker looked like the general was coming for inspection.
Right.
And he arranged his cologne bottles and stuff in ascending height, left to right.
Yeah.
But the coup, when he would wear executive socks, you know, knee-length socks,
yeah,
he would take them off and hang them up.
That's him.
And drape them over the bar. So, yeah, he was very meticulous.
And Silas, I love the Silas point because I just remember him at 6'5", and the guy, I think he led the league in offensive rebounding one year at 6'5".
Well, he's 6'7".
Oh, was he? Oh, 6'7".
But offensive rebound was a particular forte of his. He had a science about it. There's no question. He was the reigning offensive rebounder in the league in the late 60s, early 70s. Right. Which, yeah. By the way, just a little extension here. The first, I did a detour on a Celtic trip back in 1975 and went to a couple of ABA games out west when I had nights off. And one of them was in Denver, and I walk in, and I think it may have been Utah, doesn't matter. They were playing Denver, and I knew Larry Brown. And I'm talking to Larry, and he's telling me that Moses Malone, this is the rookie, right directly out of Petersburg, Virginia then. Moses Malone, he says, the best offensive rebounder I've ever seen in my life. And I said, Larry, better than Paul Silas? And he said, yes. And, you know, and of course, offensive rebounding was forever a forte of his. But anyway, Silas was an offensive rebounder. He once showed me something. He had a little technique where he said he would run out of, let's say, picture the basket, he's on the left side, okay? And he would run out of bounds and then come in and nudge out
right
position on the other side to block out a guy. And, you know, how cool is that?
It's smart. Yeah, you got
Tell me one other thing, too. when teams, remember a thing that, I mean, this is really dating us, Gareth. Remember a thing called the fast break? You remember that was organized and had an outlet pass and had a wingman and had wingmen and a trailer, you know. He showed me that he not every basket, I mean, every shot naturally, but he could angle himself so he would get the offensive rebound and immediately propel himself with 2 fast dribbles to the free throw line and then pass the ball off to you know, well, you know, the guy was a thinker.
Yeah, and that's why he was like one of how many of Reds players that became coaches? You know, they all became coaches.
Oh God, so many.
Best dressed.
You know, the Chief was good. Robert was impeccably dressed.
What about Clyde Frazier, man?
Oh, you mean I'm talking about Celtics?
Oh no, anybody.
Oh my God. Oh no. Oh yeah. Well, of course he was in his time. The man, Michael always dressed very impeccably. Jordan. That's a very good one. But yeah, Clyde Frazier was the fashion maven of all. Now a lot of guys have modern guys dress very creatively, but Frazier was probably the gold star winner.
Well, I just remember Antoine Walker had a new suit for every game.
Wow, that's a lot. That's it. And I think Allen Iverson had a new sweatshirt maybe for every game or something.
Yeah, and I think that's why poor Antoine went broke. Okay, yeah, these are for anybody, Bob, in your career.
Okay.
Most, when I say most underrated, most unappreciated, most underrated player.
Well, I think as history goes on now, I'll put it this way: the most forgotten great player was Andrew Toney, and it was a comet that flashed across the sky, and his career ended prematurely due to not one but 2 bad feet, two irresolvable issues with his feet. I mean, he was probably only about 26 or so, I'm guessing. But at his peak, he was frightening. There was nothing he could. He was the most. I call him the most contemptuous guard I ever saw. I mean, he laughed at double teams, you know, and they were like a joke to him. But he could. He is now been forgotten. I'm trying to think though. In this time. I'd have to dwell on that a little bit. That who during the time was underrated, but as time has gone on, he's the most forgotten great player in NBA history.
I always thought Connie Hawkins didn't get his due.
Did you like the Hawk? The Hawk was, his first year in the league, he was all league, first team, and but Hawk gave it to you when he wanted to give it to you.
Oh, okay.
And Joe Gilmartin, the great writer in Phoenix, used to talk about Hawk as a portrait in still life at times, I think, but obviously he was a very gifted guy and a very intriguing guy, and is has a place in history naturally due to what happened to him and why he was not in the NBA for all those years.
Now, this is my favorite question. The next two are my favorite questions. Best assistant coach.
Oh, that's easy. Yeah. They each had and it's Johnny Bach with the Bulls. Was the for sure. We had the other guy, and he was the living proof of one of my favorite sports axioms: is that not every lieutenant is cut out to be a general. Jimmy Rogers.
Yeah.
Jimmy Rogers was a great assistant coach, and he got handed the Celtics because he got a raw deal. He gets the Celtics, and Larry goes out for the year.
Right.
That isn't good. And then the next year, Larry wasn't happy the way he was being used, I guess, the second time. Yeah. But anyway, Jimmy Rogers is an easy call there. I'll tell you who my favorite was to talk to. He was my go-to guy on that particular team, getting insight and getting quips. And that was Dave Wohl when he was with the Lakers.
Center guy. I used to see him at the market.
Penn guy, but I'll never forget. I had my then maybe, let's see, this would be it was probably in his teenage years. My son at the time with me one night, and we were before the game, and we're talking to Dave Wohl, and he's talking about synapses, and Michael Jordan had faster synapses than anybody else he had seen, and my son was like very impressed. This coach was using the word synapse, but he was fun. He never got a head coaching job, did he?
It was strange. It's interesting. I don't want to speak from, I don't know. I used to see him literally at the market, and if I saw him, it was 30 minutes in the bread aisle because he had watched every game the night before. And the thing that's real, it's great talking to you, Bob. I mean, I could listen to you talk all day long. We know that. But when you talk to a guy like Wohl or even John Carroll, for that matter, these guys, and you sit there and you listen to them break down the game, and you're just you're mesmerized. Yeah, you're just mesmerized. I mean, they break down every play the way a golfer breaks down.
When I did my book 48 Minutes with Terry Pluto, which was about one game in the NBA, January 16th, 1987, the Cavaliers at the Celtics, every minute detail of the game and portraits of the players, and I sat and watched the game on tape with Jimmy Rogers and he broke it down for me. And it was phenomenal.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's there. It's at another level. Best, I think I know the answer to this. And you can give a Boston one, but then you have to give one on the road. But I think I know the answer. Best game day bar.
Major Goolsby's in Milwaukee.
I knew it. I knew it.
Major Goolsby's in Milwaukee. What I loved was in Denver called Duffy's. And that was downtown. I like that. I'm trying to think now. Let me think. Now in New York, there were Runyon's in New York, of course, in its highlight, in its heyday, which lasted for about 20 years. Originally on 50th Street, and then later on 2nd Avenue around the corner, for sure. But that Denver one was underrated, Duffy's. But Major Goolsby's was, that fondness. So many of us have a fondness. The 1974 finals, where that was the social center of the whole finals. It was great. In fact, we got to the point where on the off-day press conferences, they figured everybody was hanging out at Goolsby's, so they had it there at a conference room. Yeah, and God love Goolsby's. Good cheeseburger too. But that would be my all-time favorite NBA bar.
The fact that they had a press conference at a bar is just.
That was the NBA of accessibility, and we're all in this together. It was a giant fraternity. I'll tell you my favorite anecdote of the time. This is when we were no charters. Everybody was flying commercial, and the Celtics were flying east to west. And we got to Chicago. We had to change planes. We didn't even have a direct flight, and we had time to kill. And we're walking down to the bar. I mean, everybody, and we saw these very large people coming up against us the other way. And it was the Phoenix Suns. They were going west to east. And everybody got together in the bar, both teams, coaches, broadcasters, writers. It was a little fraternity meeting at the NBA. That was it. That spoke to the times.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Bob, I could listen to Bob Ryan stories all day. Also, pick up Scribe if you guys haven't.